Ever since the mute, stoic psychopath of GTA 3 melted our hearts, every one of Rockstar's rich and varied litany of leading men has reached iconic status. But there's one that stands out as their most brilliant, subversive best. And that would be Niko Bellic, obviously. But perhaps Rockstar's biggest triumph is that their other greatest character, in my view anyway, isn't subversive at all. In fact, he is Mr. GTA. Absolutely everything you and your mum might associate with the series embodied in one gloriously nasty psychopath.
Just ignore the bodies.
It's all on the page, and this guy's a complete psychotic, crazy man. That kind of a character is like just a dream.
Trevor was created in part to solve the conundrum of what media wanks in the late aughts like to call ludonarrative dissonance, a phenomenon in games like this where the actions of the player in the open world are at odds with the motivations of the character. It's something that reached its most absurd extent in GTA 4, where you had a character whose entire shtick was sad about war, waging his own endless conflict against the LCPD, pigeons, bystanders, hot dog vendors, and anyone else.
Having a good day!
Essentially, there are two Niko Bellics, two CJs, two Arthur Morgans, the character given voice by the writers, and the avatar that exists only as a conduit for player agency, usually to commit atrocities for fun. Trevor Philips is well understood to represent that sort of GTA player, but he isn't just a conduit, he almost is the player made manifest in that universe, an ambassador for the user, if you will, a composite of chaotic playing styles given personality and an overactive sex drive designed to evoke the way your wee brother plays GTA. That is, causing mayhem for the sake of it and achieving very little in the process. And imagining what happens when that specific GTA guy is given narrative agency.
What was that? What was that? Nothing. Ah! Asshole!
His infamous introduction is as freeing as it is shocking. He enters the story of GTA 5 at perhaps his most vile, motivated only by base desires, brutally murdering a beloved former protagonist for merely speaking out of turn. At this point, GTA fans had spent dozens of hours playing as Johnny Klebitz in The Lost and Damned, a harrowing story of gangland betrayal that ends on a, for GTA, quite a hopeful note, with Johnny cutting ties with the bad influences in his life and more or less pledging to go straight. By the time we meet him again in GTA 5, he's a sickly looking meth addict who's fallen right back into the world he'd previously managed to escape from. It's bloody tragic, but we barely got any time to think about that because after swiftly kicking him to death, we, as Trevor Philips, had work to get on with. It's a bold move to bring in a new character by diminishing an established one. It reminds me of Commander Sisko in the pilot of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. The one time we ever see Commander Sisko on the Enterprise, and what is initially played as a passing of the torch moment between the beloved Captain Picard and the new leading man, becomes a tense, awkward interaction between two men who clearly dislike each other. Picard thinks Sisko doesn't have his mind on the job, and Sisko hates Picard because his wife was killed at the Battle of Wolf 359 when... Sorry, I'm not allowed to talk about Star Trek, I've been told.
Oh, looks like you got something you want to say, huh? You got something you need to say?
You'd be forgiven for thinking that Trevor isn't supposed to be liked at all. Some readings of GTA 5 even call him the true villain of the piece, and it's not hard to see why. On paper, there's nothing especially likable about him. He doesn't stand for anything. He's a hateful jerk, and as an idea, he's about as complex as the wee ship in Asteroids. The challenge then is how to make such a character compelling without betraying the deliberate lack of complexity at his core. Nothing would ruin Trevor more than that wretched, cowardly device we call nuance. Everything he does has to be in service of his immediate wants or his personal enrichment. But complexity doesn't have to mean riddled with contradictions. Trevor has a moral code of sorts. He values loyalty, not just to himself, but as a general virtue, which is what fuels his deep-seated rage at Michael during his first story act. But despite this delineating betrayal, he displays an unwavering allegiance to Michael's young family, caring for his children, to whom he considers himself an uncle.
What, are you gonna stand here and argue while your daughter becomes a national laughingstock?
As his fraught backstory becomes fleshed out in drips and drabs over the course of the game, the writers are keen to give any tragic revelations some ballast so they don't ever become excuses or justifications for his behaviour. On the one hand, we find out that he has a history of childhood abuse and abandonment. On the other hand, it's heavily implied that he's an infamous serial strangler and a cannibal. We know that he's a gifted aviator, but that his career as a fighter pilot is cut short in the 80s when he fails a psych evaluation, and it's sort of hard to take Trevor's side over the Canadian military in that instance.
Hey, so I grew up in Canada, huh? What's a big deal?
Canadian, yes, no doubt inspired by his actor Stephen Ogg hailing from up north. Trevor, who's about as antithetical to the concept of politeness as any human being can be, is from Canada. That Trevor is one of the core American archetypes, a troubled forces veteran who's been utterly failed by the system and yet isn't even American, might be one of the best jokes in the entire game.
Hey, a boot.
Don't even say it like that.
There's a moose loose about the hoose.
Oh, Jesus. It's a faint accent.
The player is rarely asked to feel sorry for Trevor, even at his lowest ebb, where we see him briefly start to build a relationship with his estranged mother, only for her to abandon him again, triggering a regressive outburst of psychological anguish. We are forcibly transferred to a different character, while the consequences of that are played out off-screen. The great parlour trick that Rockstar pulls off with Trevor is to give him dimensions and layers enough to rival that of Niko Bellic, without falling into the same trap of ludonarrative dissonance. In fact, it achieves a state of ludonarrative harmony, one not seen since Vice City avoided all this nonsense by having you play an angry coke fiend. But unlike Scarface, Rockstar becomes truly untouchable in the process, creatively and morally untethered, exiting the media's field of influence on a rocket ship powered by cold, hard cash. By building a character who unapologetically embodies all the degeneracy that GTA used to be stereotyped with, Rockstar made a big joke at the expense of all their critics, and by imbuing him with such brilliant, emotive depth, they garnish that joke with a raised middle digit.
Well, that's not very friendly, is it?
You see, Trevor Philips was conceived at a time when Grand Theft Auto had a deep and unshiftable reputation in mainstream circles for being a mindless crime simulator, one that rewards and glorifies depravity and atrocity.
You, the player, are a street thug trying to take over the city.
Obviously, as gamers who enjoy Rockstar's worlds and characters, we know that assessment is at best reductive, but only with the passage of time and the changing of the guard when it comes to what and who the media reflects and represents, e.g. millennials, has this reputation been slowly buffed away. I suspect if you didn't live through it, it's difficult to appreciate just how ingrained this dismissive, derisive attitude was. And let's be honest, the original GTA didn't exactly make the most intellectual first impression, with its simplistic objectives, crude visual design, and literal bonus points for doing a massacre. Not that anyone on the news actually played it enough to have even gotten a Garanga. You can watch in real time here as the BBC's habitual sneer asserts itself in this old Rory Kechman-Jones report from a studio visit to DMA Design, the precursor to Rockstar North, while they were developing the original GTA in the late 90s.
Now, all the people in here are working on what DMA hopes will be its new blockbuster. It's a game called Grand Theft Auto.
He stomps around the break room like a Debenhams regional manager doing an inspection, implies that it's not a real workplace, asks one of the few women in the building what she's doing there.
And how did you get this job?
Well, like I said, I went to college.
And just generally calls them a bunch of specky nerds. I mean, in fairness, it is very funny.
All those people sat there were playing games and they get paid for that.
It's paid for developing games.
What sort of people are they? Are they what the ruder people in my office would call nerds? Is that what people really want, all that violence?
And yes, look, although I would call it borderline cartoonish, ultraviolence is a core part of GTA's design. There's no getting around it. The freedom to be an unapologetic criminal, to reject and frustrate societal norms with outlandish behaviour without any significant consequences, is integral to the appeal of a Rockstar game, because they're rad. And still, all the fan-favourite Rockstar guys have a layer of complexity that makes them relatable and endears them to us despite their capacity for depravity. Whether it's that they're sad about war, terminally ill, missing mum, or Ray Liotta.
It was fun, you know, you're just sitting there cursing at people.
Rockstar is, with each successive game, imbuing its characters with ever more humanity, and in turn, more reason to get invested in the parts of its world that aren't just a playground.
Trust.
Trust.
We can certainly see this in the brewing love story that is GTA 6. I will die on the hill that says depicting real, quiet moments of tenderness between its lead characters is perhaps the studio's grandest evolution to date, because it's about people. And what gives GTA its unique power is that it's a satire of American society with broad global appeal. It's adored by Americans for the mirror it holds up to their own lived reality, and it's beloved by the rest of us for being a knowing caricature of a country we all feel intimately familiar with, whether we've been there or not. Particularly within the Anglosphere, most of the film and TV we see is American. We get American news clips, we listen to American podcasts, we work for American websites, we understand American jokes about other Americans purely through this cultural osmosis, this saturation that I think makes us all a little bit American in some small way, in the same way that you can be culturally Christian without ever setting foot in a church. And I've made a lot of British people angry by saying that, but I don't care. Seethe about it on the way to the dentist, etc. The point is this: there's no such thing as satire without humanity. You don't satirize stuff, you satirize folk. You satirize human beings and the baffling things they do. And Trevor's embodiment of angry chaos, video gamey as it is no less an expression of humanity than Niko Bellic's yearning for a quiet life. For what is a human being but a confused ape? Thrust into a bewildering information dystopia that evolution couldn't possibly have prepared us for. A shaved bonobo that has to do tax returns and renew its car insurance. A wretched, doomed creature that has to invent CSI Miami and the Sega Mega Drive to stop itself from going insane. Increasingly, Rockstar's games understand that the message hits much harder when there's something fundamentally real to hang it from. Whether that message is a depraved running gag about shagging a stuffed bear in the eye socket, or a scathing treatise on how the powerful wield torture as a weapon of terror.
The media and the government would have us believe that torture is some necessary thing. Torture's for the torturer, or the guy giving the orders to the torturer. It's useless as a means of getting information.
The moral panic about GTA 5's infamous torture scene tended to miss out that part, as indeed the media and people on Blue Sky often miss that merely depicting something villainous isn't endorsing it. And perhaps making the player complicit in state violence is supposed to make them uncomfortable. Although it has to be said, the mainstream media coverage of GTA had matured a lot by 2013. For the most part, setting aside all the old arguments about whether or not it crosses the line into glorifying violence and misogyny, and instead asking the really important questions like, how much does it increase GDP then?
What's really important is that Britain is exporting stuff which it is good at, and one of the things we are great at is creativity.
I don't know, mate, have you ever seen Doctor Who? 17 years after accidental partridging his way around the DMA design office, the same reporter, who is a respected tech journalist, profiled the cultural significance of Grand Theft Auto on the eve of GTA 5. Okay, so this coverage still leaves a lot to be desired. It's comically obsessed with how much money GTA 5 is going to make, despite being ostensibly about its cultural impact. But there is a resigned acceptance of the fact that this video game is one of the most important pieces of popular media in 2013. Yeah, 2013 was basically GTA, The Red Wedding, and Sharknado.
Now it's thought this latest edition could earn over £500 million in its first few days, more than any movie opening.
There might have been a lingering sense of bafflement about the whole thing, but what it demonstrates beautifully is just how much Rockstar no longer needed to care about how its products were perceived by anyone apart from the millions of people who loved them. All the noise and fury from such campaigns as Mothers Against Drunk Driving and Jack Thompson's entire career never mattered, because in the end, GTA won, and it won by being so good, so at the very top of its league, that it had you money. And having that kind of money is the only way to win in America, where this battle was largely fought, something that Trevor himself would no doubt find amusing.
What the f is wrong with you? I got abandonment issues. I see a shrink once a week.
In a way, Trevor's pointed lack of subversion is so extreme that it loops back on itself and becomes subversive, as a series once so synonymous with controversy becomes celebrated as a cultural juggernaut and admired as a business venture. GTA is now itself as mainstream as it gets. The playground of mindless atrocity that it offers is a darkly comic and expertly crafted creation that in itself is far from mindless. And you know, I think we need it right now.
I mourned you, and I missed you.
Trevor is the bit of us that wants to burn it all down, and through him we can taste a life of true animalistic freedom. In the continuum of Rockstar's character experimentation, I think he represents a crucial link between the likes of Niko Bellic and Arthur Morgan, tragic men who wasted every chance to be decent, and Jason and Lucia, whose story will for the first time in Grand Theft Auto be one of affectionate love. Trevor unabashedly living his truth sets the stage for Jason and Lucia to live theirs, bringing something entirely new to the table in defiance of player expectations. And Trevor's story is a love story because in every sense, he does what he does for the love of the game. If you enjoyed that, please check out my playlist on the IGN YouTube channel. It's called The Trinket Perspective. And hey, maybe you think I'm talking rubbish, or maybe you don't. Either way, leave a nice comment, and above all, remain calm.